be taking up the last topic related with Shakespeare art of writing. And that is Shakespeare Roman play. Means the way he has written all the plays, so he has put them into. They have been categorized into some categories like Shakespearean comedy, Shakespearean tragedy, tragicomedy, Shakespeare romance, Shakespeare history plays, and today Shakespeare Roman plays. So, first let us discuss the background in which Shakespeare started writing, and it was a time of Elizabethan Queen Elizabeth, and so hence it was called an Elizabethan era because of her greatness, because of the reform she has taken in almost all the fields. So, Elizabethan interest in Roman history. One of the result of the Renaissance in England was the growth of interest in classical life and literature. Every fresh addition to the knowledge of the history and thought of an ancient Greek and Rome was eagerly welcomed. Sir Thomas North translation of Plutarch's life, which was first published in 1575. I repeat again, Sir Thomas North translation of Plutarch's life was published in 1575. Student, you all should keep in mind all these dates because they are relevant for the competitive examination. This provided the framework and sometimes even the wording of the Roman plays of Shakespeare, Beaumont and Fletcher, Ben Jonson and Messenger. These play and their leading figure undoubtedly made a special appeal to Elizabethan playgoer who perhaps drew a parallel between the history of those days and the stirring time in which he himself was living. We may indeed note here that it was easy for the English to identify themselves with the Romans, whose occupation of Britain had left so firm an impression on their life, laws, and language, and whose feeling for order, justice, and personal integrity in administration they had inherited. In later times, when the English, like the Romans, became great empire builder, it started in the Elizabethan era, and later the British became the most powerful kingdom in the world, whose colonies were reaching in entire world in all the continent, whether it is Asia, Africa, Latin America, or even they have settlers in countries like USA, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. So it was said that sun never sets on British Empire, and but everything has its downfall, and so the British had. In later time, when the English, like the Roman, became great empire builder, the writer and orator often expressed their pride in this similarity of ideal and achievement. Shakespeare himself must have been keenly conscious of this affinity between his countrymen and their ancient ruler. See, we have seen a recent incident of Iran claiming themselves as a ancient Persian empire, and they have proved it that they are a great empire. They had a great empire, and so they still have those quality. And in the more recent time we have seen how the state how Melanie has answered to Trump when she has said that I am a Roman. The Italian head of the institution, who is a lady, she has answered to Trump's remark when Trump said that she wanted to take picture of her. Then she said that I am a Roman and we don't back. So this is how this ancient people of ancient civilization were, and still people feel proud of their ancient heritage. So coming to the Romans plays of Shakespeare now, fidelity to the original. Shakespeare treated his sources in Plutarch's biography in much the same way as he treated the chronicles when he was writing his English historical play. He followed the main outline, but he amplified, omitted, or reconstructed at his own will. So every writer has his own interpretation. In the same way, Shakespeare also had. Sometime, as in the case of Coriolanus, he departed widely from the original and altered entirely the psychology of the central character. He did not, of course, possess the scholarship of Ben Jonson. Ben Jonson is considered as more scholar by the critic than Shakespeare, who went to the original Latin sources for all that his character had to say or do. So we should read Ben Jonson also. These writers are not so popular in the contemporary time, but they all are great in their own sense. He had sometimes more precious the gift of imaginative reconstruction, the power of evoking a credible and convincing atmosphere and creating people who are living beings to us. Though they belong to a vanished world, he did not overload his plays with classical terms and allusion, but used the more persuasive methods of concentrating on the elements common to the life of all people in all times. If his Roman artisans were very like the Elizabethan working man, that made them all the more congenial to his audience and was probably closer to the essential truth of things that any learned patchwork of classical data could be. It is always important to remember that it was first and the foremost Shakespeare's intention and profession to write an effective piece of drama for performance on the stage. However, for his mighty genius might bear him in the course of his start. So he did not believe on original. He has his own creativity, imagination, and his way of interpreting things. Now coming to the tragic technique. The Roman plays are structurally tragedies. They are not histories like the English canonical plays. Their main theme is the ruin of a noble soul. We see this in all the tragedies of Shakespeare, Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, all same, and even Macbeth also, and in the other great tragedy. Knight remarks in his studies of Shakespeare. Now this is also a very good book, Knight's studies of Shakespeare. If you want to read completely about Shakespeare, you should read about what other scholars, critics, and writer believes about Shakespeare. So read this book, Studies of Shakespeare by Knight. The hero of Shakespeare's great classical trilogy is Rome, but we need not agree with his view. Julius Caesar, Antony and Cleopatra and Coriolanus are not so much picture of Roman men and manner as studies in character like Hamlet, Othello, Lear and Macbeth. They are four main tragedies of Shakespeare. They are tragedies with a firmer historical basis. Julius Caesar was composed almost together with Hamlet, and Antony and Cleopatra and Coriolanus immediately after Macbeth. Antony and Cleopatra is a love tragedy or romance tragedy. In their real subject was Rome. One would have expected them to follow each other in rapid succession, like the chronicle plays. There is a gap of 7 years between Julius Caesar and Antony and Cleopatra, though one continues the story of the other. Julius Caesar. So story is often forwarded in Antony and Cleopatra. On the other hand, there is a resemblance between Hamlet and Julius Caesar, Macbeth and Antony and Cleopatra, Coriolanus and Lear, King Lear. Hamlet and Julius Caesar, says Dowden, are both tragedies of thought rather of passion. So critics believe that these two, Hamlet and Julius Caesar, are tragedy of thought, not a tragedy of passion. Both present in their chief characters the spectacle of noble nature which fails through some weakness or deficiency rather than through crime. Upon Brutus as upon Hamlet a burden is laid which he is not able to bear. Neither Brutus nor Hamlet is fitted for action, yet both are called to act in dangerous and difficult affairs. So too, both in Macbeth and in Antony, we see the ruin of a man of lofty qualities and potentialities who by reason of a flaw in his character accentuated by the evil influence of a woman. So whether it is Macbeth or it is Antony and Cleopatra, these two men are being ruined by women. It was Lady Macbeth in Macbeth and Cleopatra in Antony who were the reason for their downfall. Otherwise they would have been a noble character or they would have not died such disastrous death. What Coriolanus and Lear have in common and what draws misery and destruction on them both is insensate pride and self-will. Then English histories and Roman plays. The Roman plays are finer in proportion and dramatic construction than the English historical plays. Each of the Roman plays is complete in itself, whereas the English play from Richard II to Henry VIII are practically a continuous series. In the words of the German critic Schlegel, I quote, They are, as it were, a historical heroic poem in the dramatic form of which the several play constitute the rhapsodies. There is also a vast difference in the poetic quality of the two groups. In the Roman plays, it is unmistakably, but in Henry VI and Henry VIII, it is so uneven that many critics have felt that Shakespeare himself cannot have written much of them. This, however, is highly controversial subject. So there are many things which can be discussed further and further, and in the same way, Shakespeare history plays or Roman plays or anything can be discussed further in more comprehensive way. So this is for today's, and if you want to read in depth about Shakespeare, I am telling some of the book right in depth. I will also write all this book below my video after a short span of time. So once you read A.C. Bradley's Shakespearean Tragedy, then W.M. Dixon Tragedy, E. Dowden Shakespeare, His Mind and Art, then H. Grimley Barker on Dramatic Method, Study of Drama, then A. Jha, Shakespearean Comedy, E. F. Jordan, The Drama in Europe in Theory and Practice, G. Meredith, An Essay on Comedy, A. Nicole, British Drama, Theory of Drama, G. Sainsbury, Short History of English Literature, A. H. Thorndike, Tragedy, Comedy, C. E. Vaughan, Types of Tragic Drama. So all these books are a background for the study of English drama. If you want to study Shakespeare in detailed way, or in any or about all about the British drama or English drama. And tomorrow I will be taking up the topic of prose, the essay. So there is S. Yash GMN GM9D Kui. He is saying, hello, what are you telling? I'm telling about Shakespeare Roman plays, and if you have joined from the beginning, you would have heard that. And when we teach, we also give example of contemporary scenario. So when I was talking about Roman history, I was giving example or ancient civilization. I was giving the example of Iranian who are proud of their ancient civilization, and also about Melanie when she said that she's a Roman and they don't beg in front of anybody. So this is for today. I hope it is clear. Thank you, everyone.